Welcome to our education research series, Maddie's Insights, our practical tips based on current research to help pets and people, and that you can use in your work supporting animals and our communities. Today, we're very happy to welcome our special guest, Dr. Catherine Kisavi-Atatah, a professor and the Director of Public Health and Health in the School of Public and Allied Health at Prairie View A&M University in Texas. PVAMU is a historical Black college and university and the second oldest institute of higher education in Texas. Dr. Kisavi-Atatah is known and recognized for her contributions in addressing public health problems, developing intervention methodologies, and managing biopsychosocial functions. Today, she's going to be sharing her study that explored the complex relationship between Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities with their companion animals. Her work identifies the unique challenges and barriers that BIPOC communities face in accessing veterinary care, resources, and support for their companion animals, and looks at policy recommendations that can help all of us in our animal welfare work. Let's welcome Dr. Kisavi-Atatah to learn more. Welcome.
Thank you for that introduction and for giving me this opportunity to present this paper. Once again, my name is Dr. Catherine Kisavi-Atatah, School of Public and Allied Health here at Prairie View University. So the topic of this paper was examining the relationships between BIPOC communities and their companion animals. A little bit about myself. Sheila did a good job of introducing me. I have worked in the public health space for over 20 years, and I specialize mostly working with a diverse range of expertise as well as communities. My career, of course, spans from academia, tactical applications. I focus on policy design. I've published several articles on global health, health promotion, as well as program evaluation. I have been recognized and contributed in public health, addressing issues dealing with public health problems, especially in Black and Brown communities, developing intervention, and also managing biopsychosocial functions. I currently serve as the Director of Public Health and Health in the School of Public and Allied Health here at Prairie View A&M University in Texas. A little bit about Prairie View A&M. It is an historically Black institution and the second oldest public institution of higher education in Texas. I want to take this moment to ask you to join me to officially celebrate our new School of Public and Allied Health in Texas, the first historically Black institution. HBCUs have a long history of serving populations, and having public health school of such institution can lead to a targeted research interventions, as well as additional studies and policies that are aimed at improving the health outcomes of marginalized populations, as well as communities. Conducting these particular studies provide also an opportunity to address health disparity that mostly affect Black and Brown communities. So what are some of the learning objectives that are utilized in this paper? Some of them are improving understanding the complexities of the BIPOC communities and companion animals relationships, analyzing the challenges faced by BIPOC communities in companion animal care, examining the role of culturally competency and diversity in animal welfare, and last but not least, evaluating the policy and practical implications. So let's look at improving understanding the complexities of BIPOC communities, as well as companion animal relationship. This explains the multifaceted aspects of the relationships between Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities and their companion animals, which include historical, cultural, as well as social economical factors. When we're talking about analyzing the challenges faced by BIPOC communities and in companion animal care, we identify and access the unique challenges and barriers that BIPOC communities encounter in assessing veterinary care, resources, and support for their companion animals, and also evaluate the implications for both the animals as well as the communities. Examining the role of culturally competency and diversity in animal welfare. Actually, this was extremely important to me, and that is one of the reasons why I embarked in this study. Here we get to discuss the significance of cultural competency and diversity in veterinary medicine and as well as animal welfare, and also analyze how these factors affect or influence the provision of care and support of BIPOC individuals as well as their communities in their interactions with their companion animals. Last but not least, which is also extremely important, evaluating the policy and practical implication. In this case, we evaluate the policy, recommendation, and practical implications and insights presented in the paper to better support BIPOC communities in their relationships with companion animals, and also consider the broader implication of public policies, animal welfare organization, as well as community interventions. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about the background of this study. I'm going to give credit to CARE, most especially, which is our Companions and Animals for Reform and Equity. This organization gave me this opportunity to be able to conduct this study. I mostly want to give credit to Ms. Maddie because when she approached me to do this study, I was lost. I come from a public health space and I had no idea what I was going to do with animal welfare. And when she approached me and was able to bridge that gap with our institution, I was convinced that this would not only benefit me personally as an educator, but also benefit my students and the communities at large. So I want to say thank you, CARE. I want to say mostly thank you, Ms. Monirad, for bridging that gap. Before I started this study, I had to do a lot of literature review and see exactly what's out there about animal welfare and BIPOC communities and public health. What is it that I'm bringing into the table? It's one thing to be excited about doing a study that you're not familiar with, but it's another thing to better have an understanding, why is it that you're doing this study? And that is what they call a gap in literature. So upon reviewing a lot of the literature, I found that there were limited studies that existed that addressed the relationships between companion animals as well as BIPOC community. Therefore, this study explores and investigates the relationship between communities of color and their companion animal. As you can see, this paper was actually published in an international journal, the Journal of Arts and Humanities and Social Studies of June 2020. And once again, the primary purpose of this qualitative research study was to explore as well as investigate those relationships between BIPOC communities and their pets and animals, especially companion animals. Now, the question now becomes, why did I pick qualitative research? First and foremost, when I was doing my PhD, I had a choice to either do qualitative research or quantitative research. For those, just to give you a brief a difference between the two is quantitative research deals with numbers and qualitative research deals with experiences. In other words, you cannot measure people's experiences just by using quantitative research, but qualitative research allows people to talk to you about their experiences. Therefore, that's why I decided to go ahead and do this study using qualitative research. Now, the question now becomes, what type of theoretical framework did I use? The theoretical framework underscores and concluded that there was a relationship between the companion animals and their the relationship between humans and companion animals. The theoretical framework that I adopted for this study was from Bowlby Theoretical Framework from 1969 and 73, focusing on human relationship with non-human animals. Key questions emerged regarding whether animals can fulfill human attachment needs, the applicability of human attachment, models to explore human-animal attachment, and the role of animals in therapeutic settings. This particular theoretical framework supported the idea that developed relationships between people and their pets or companion animals are actually possible, making it the chosen framework for this qualitative research. So moving on, what type of design did I use for this study? The research study aimed to interview a minimum of 20 BIPOC community residents regarding their relationship with their companion animals. These interviews were conducted in groups of 5 participants, with each interview lasting a minimum of 3 hours, and participants provided with email, telephone screening script to explain and ensure, of course, they have informed consent, which is extremely important in research. During the time I conducted this research is when we were going through COVID-19. Therefore, this research was conducted via Zoom. And auto-transcription software and analysis was used to gather data, and then I hand-coded the data once it was compiled. I have conducted a few qualitative research studies, but I have never seen one that I have met participants who are so eager to participate. This was actually one of the easiest recruitment I have ever done. And once approached, the next thing they kept asking me, are my animals going to be there? Are you going to take pictures of my animals? I mean, they were so overwhelmed. And some of the questions that came up was, why do you want us to participate in this? Why us? Nobody has ever approached us about this. This is really nice. I think we should be doing more of this. So that is one of the things that I actually took away when I was trying to recruit a lot of these participants. So I went ahead and used purposeful sampling to select the participants. And they were selected from 4 ethnic groups. We had the Hispanics, we had Blacks, we had Caucasians, and Asians. And all of them had either had pets or they had experiences with pets. This sampling method was chosen to prioritize information-rich cases related to the subject matter. This study used a case study approach, qualitative methodology. Before I move on, I included my students in this study. It was a total of about 34 students, and they actually really helped me analyze the data. They were very interested in partaking in this study because Even my students who are public health, future public health practitioners, they did not really have a lot of experiences with either pets or companion animals. And they really were not understanding how do we merge those two worlds together. That is the public health space and the relationships with the companion or the animal welfare. And once they were able to assist me in this particular study, there were a lot of them who became very interested in actually pursuing a field in animal welfare. So the three research questions that were employed for this study were, the first research question was, what are the relationships between BIPOC communities and their companion animals? The second research question is, how do BIPOC communities perceive their relationships with their companion animals? And what type of companion animals do they have? The third research question was, what are the experiences BIPOC communities have with their companion animals? So one, what is the relationship? I want to know, what type of relationship do you have? How do you perceive these relationships? And what are your experiences with your companion animals? This research study was conducted with two primary assumptions. One of the assumptions was BIPOC community residents have some forms of relationships with their companion animals. The second assumption was BIPOC community residents have no relationship with their companion animals. As stated before, this study included 4 focus groups, and they had a total of 18 participants. Initially, I wanted to go ahead and use 20 participants, but 2 participants were not able to partake or participate because they had emergencies. And of course, I used the auto software to transcribe the interviews, and they were also recorded via Zoom, and notes were taken during the interview process. Because the thing about qualitative research is it's also important, not only are you recording them or taking a video, but it's also important for you to write things down because you want to capture every moment. You want to see how the participants respond. You want to see their body language. You want to see what the environment looks like. You want to see their facial expressions. All that is important when you're doing qualitative research. And also the data collected was self-hand coded. So let's move on to the results and findings of the study. This table identifies the themes for each research question. So when you're doing a qualitative research, you want to look at the themes. You want to look at words that are repetitive. What is each participant's, how are they responding to each question? So when you see participants saying the same thing over and over again, those are the themes that you want to capture. So in this particular research question 1, you will see that these themes were actually based or selected based on word similarity. So table 2 showed that majority of participants classify their pets or animals as child. This is my support. This is my companion. Furthermore, participants perceive their pets as or animals as their family and sibling. And this is a research question 2. Participants also consider their experiences with their pets or animals as emotional support and protection purposes in research question 3. So I just wanted to capture some of the responses from my participants. So for the research question 1, you saw that the theme child came up over and over again. One of the participants asserted, she is a part of the family. And it's interesting as I speak, I can just see how they were responding. She's a part of the family. When I had my children, they were introduced as her sister. They have a sister She's a part of my family. The theme companion, the participant responded, I got her when I was by myself. Now we are surrounded by people. But for a very long time, it was just she and I. The theme family. He is a part of the family. We think of him that way. We are concerned about it that way. You know, we know of course, he is the dog, but he is a family. He's our friend. And that is how I consider him. Another thing, emotional. She helped me get through a lot during school. She helped me. My mother passed away and my brother went away. And this particular participant, when she was responding, she was extremely emotional. She cried. We literally had to basically stop the interviewing and just talk to her. She was extremely emotional. This brought out all the difficult times that she has been through. But she was so excited that she was actually sharing her experience with her pet, with other people, and letting us know that because of that pet, she was able to get through such a difficult time. I'm going to say that we did not have one dry eye when she was responding. So that captured so much about how she felt about her pet. So on table 3, you're going to see some emerging themes. So it identified some themes based on the results and findings of the focus group interviews. For example, 15 out of 27 or 55.6% claimed that they panicked when their companion pets or animals were reported missing. Furthermore, 6 out of 27 or 22% claimed that they freaked out whenever their companion pets and animals became missing. Another 5 out of 27 or 18.5% claimed that they owned companion pets and animals due to their historical cultures of growing up with pets and animals in their houses when they were children, and 1 out of 27 claimed that their pets and animals were owned for service purposes. When we're talking about panic, when some of the participants were responding to this particular research question or interview question at that point, when she gave a long story, and that's why my interview lasted so long. She gave a long story about how her pet went missing. And when her pet went missing, it took a toll on the entire family because they had had that pet for over 10 years. And every day she went to work, it was for about a week, she talked about her animal missing. And one day, she gets a call from her uncle. And the uncle lives on the other side of town, but that particular uncle babysat her pet for many years. So she gets a call from her uncle and says, guess what? Your pet is here. It found its way home. That's deep. When she was giving that story, I couldn't help but wonder, wow, how amazing. How can we have such deep connections with animals? And yet, a lot of us don't really realize how beneficial those relationships are. And I'm one of them, I must add. Because if you look at this theme, emerging theme of historical cultural context, one of our participants was from an African background. And I, for one, I'm from an African background. And one of the things we do not do is put pets in the house because pets are considered, or animals, and I'm going to use the word animals, are considered to be either used for security or they're used for hunting. And so from a cultural perspective, It is almost like a taboo to have a pet in your house. And I would tell people, the universe it works in so many different ways, because personally, I don't like animals. I've never liked animals. I've always been scared of animals. And I have two beautiful children. And one of my daughter comes to me one time and says, "Mommy, we need a cat." And I said, "Of all the animals in the world, you want a cat?" And she says, "Mommy, that's what I want." And she begged me and begged me. And if you are from Africa, you know that cats are one of the few animals that people do not want to keep in their house. But I ended up begging and getting a cat. And we had a cat for 15 years before he passed away. But I saw what that cat did to the family. And I saw the relationship and the connection that cat had with my daughter. From so many things, it helped her through so many difficult times. And every time she was going through a hard time, it was that cat that helped her go through those times. So yes, I, for one, understood the significance of having those relationships. And maybe, just maybe, more Africans, not really maybe, honestly, I have noted that in our community now, we are seeing more and more Africans having pets in their homes. So let's look at the word panic. One of the participants decided, "I would be terrified that they would be mistreated or hit by a car. I feel like by keeping them inside all the time, they are much safer." And this participant talked about her community, because her community had a lot of cars going up and down, and there was really no, it was not a safe environment. So she was not comfortable at all letting her pets out. Another one talked about service animal. I want to get him to be certified so that he can be a service animal. This participant was just like me. She did not care too much for animals. However, she just recently got married during that time. I think it was just a few months that she had been married, and her husband actually had an animal. And her husband walked out of town for so many, he was always out of town. So she had no choice but babysit the animal. So over those few months, she developed a deep connection with that animal. And she was speaking about it. She had this smile on her face, like, "I cannot believe this is me. I cannot believe I have this relationship with this animal." And she stated that her husband had a disability. And one of the things that she wanted to do was see whether she can have that animal trained to be a service animal. So, what are some of the limitations of this study? When you conduct a study, you always have to have some type of limitations. One of them is this study cannot be generalized statewide or on a national platform. Another limitation was only qualitative methodology was used. We only used 3 counties sample pool. It was just a pilot study. It was a small study. And then we did not have enough participants. And then the gender participant ratio was off because we only had 2 men. Therefore, it is important as I'm moving forward if I have to expand this study, I need to make sure that I have additional participants, not just 20. It's important if I could use a mixed method approach, that is a qualitative and quantitative approach. How about widening this study and including more counties, and also to have a fair representation of gender, so that we can see exactly how the man's view and women's view on this particular issue. So, discussions and conclusions. The purposes or reasons as to why BIPOC communities own their pets and animals are somehow debatable in many societies in the past and today, especially among white Europeans in America. BIPOC communities form meaningful relationship with their pets akin to other communities, and their bonds should be respected. This is important because I think when I was looking at a lot of studies, you see like a lot of BIPOC communities, Black and Brown, or people of Indigenous people, or people of color, you see that there is some type of, I'm just going to say misunderstanding as to how they relate to each other, how they relate to their companion animals. So based on this study, I clearly saw that, yes, they have meaningful relationships. The reasons behind BIPOC community pet ownerships are similar to those of other animal owners, reflecting diverse source of acquisition. And this study eliminates the positive social changes associated with BIPOC communities, pet ownership, contributing to a broader understanding of their motivations as well as benefits. In other words, we cannot discount these communities. We cannot see their relationships as different because the few that have been able to have companion animals or have a relationship with companion animals, they see the benefits, especially in cultures like my culture, as I asserted. And, and even before I move forward, I just remembered one of the things that one of my participants stated, who was coming from an African background, is she always has a pet. And she stated that one of the things is whenever guests come to our house and she sees, they see her kissing her dog. She has a dog. Their reaction is like, why are you kissing your dog? Don't do that, But over the years, because she's always had a pet, over the years, her family, her friends, anybody who visits her, who all has a relationship with her, I've realized that this relationship is significant. So when they go to their home, it's no longer just calling her name, but also checking to see, hey, where is so-and-so? So that helps bridge that gap in our community in understanding the importance of these relationships. So what are some of the recommendations of the study? The study posed several recommendations for BIPOC communities, leaderships, public health leaderships, public health policy makers, environmentalists, law enforcement, leaderships recommending for future study. So the following are recommendations from the overall community leaderships and policy decision makers. Why am I saying this? Why am I talking about public health? As I had stated before when I started this presentation, is that I don't see too many studies where we have public health practitioners and animal welfare merging. And with our current new school of public and allied health, it is so important for us to begin to actually do more studies or deep dive into this type of relationships. Let me talk to you from a public health practitioner standpoint. I have worked with children with so many types of disabilities. I've worked with children who have been diagnosed as MR. I've worked with children who are autistic and many other disabilities, children who have seizure disorders. And one thing that I have come to find that whilst we refer this to children, especially children with autism, to different type of therapies, whether it is host therapy or any other applied behavior therapy, it's extremely expensive for these families to be able to hone into this type of therapies. Therefore, we as public health practitioners, while we are needed in addressing disparities in healthcare, whether it is maternal health and all other different health issues that we have to realize that if we can connect these two different worldviews, then we will eventually have good health outcomes. So as policymakers, what can we do to make sure or to hone into these relationships, to make it one extremely affordable for these communities and children who have autism to be able to get some type of help from companion animals? So serving backup communities, one, know that the needs, purposes, and reasons. Implement laws and policies that include all residents. It should never be punitive. It should never be punitive without the understanding. Understand that owning companion animals can significantly enhance life. Let us overlook the stigma. Let us educate on ownership and care and improve use of communications for missing pets. So recommendations for future study, like I stated, let's make it a mixed method approach. That makes it more comprehensive. Let's have a large data pool, lack of generalization. Let's scale it up. Exploration and investigations, research platforms. And last but not least, let us make it more robust. So moving on to practical applications. One, culturally competent outreach and education. Develop and implement culturally sensitive outreach and educational programs tailored by BIPOC communities, provide information in multiple languages to ensure accessibility. Anytime I look at this word culturally competent, I come back to my days of social work. I am also a licensed social worker in the state of Texas. My first degree was in social work. You can never reach people without being culturally competent. You have to understand the needs of that community. You have to educate yourself on the need of that community. And that means reading up on that community. Never go in telling them what they're supposed to do, because if you do that, the results you're going to get are not going to be the ones you want. It is important for you to allow them to drive their own outcomes. You give them the information, let them partake in it, because anytime somebody is able to make their own decisions, the outcomes are always better. And when you respect that community, the probability of you yielding great results are extremely high. And when I think about this culturally competent outreach, I always think about Ebola. I don't know whether many of you remember when Ebola first broke out in some places in Africa, West Africa. We had countries like Liberia, Senegal, Nigeria, when Ebola first broke out. And one of the biggest problems we're having is when foreign entities were going into the communities, trying to educate the communities about Ebola, and of course telling them, hey, this is what you should do to make it better. The reason why those communities were not complying is because they did not trust them. So it is important for us to build that bridge within those communities in order for us to reach them. Another thing, we have to also understand that you cannot solve a problem without understanding the root of the problem. You have to get to the root of the problem. BIPOC communities, the way they have been raised, the way they view the animals is different from other communities. So therefore, it is important for you to understand, why is it that you treat your animal this way? Why is this that these are the type of views you have with animals? In order for you have to understand that before you can even try to educate them. The second one is affordable veterinary services. It is important to establish or support low-cost veterinary clinics in underserved BIPOC neighborhoods. That is, offer some type of sliding scale, fee structure, or financial assistance program for pets. When I think about this affordable veterinary, what came into my mind was Medicaid, a form of Medicaid. Families were not able to actually afford, because a lot of times when they're not able to afford care, then they neglect the animals. Then also that is negative. It has a negative implications for them, because they lose their loved ones. That is their family member that they cannot take care of. And I have a story to tell on this, because when my daughters, whilst I was not as close to the cat like my daughter, when her cat became sick, she begged me. She said, I need you to take this cat to the vet. And I took that cat to the vet, and it was extremely expensive. But I was able to afford it, and I thank God for that. But even me myself, I was like, wow, this is expensive. But because I knew the relationship and the love that she had with her cat, I needed to save her cat in order to save my daughter. And the next one is community pet care workshops. Let's organize regular workshops on pet care, nutrition and behavior, and tailor to the specific needs and preferences of BIPOC communities, which include hands-on training and demonstrations. Of course, you go to the community, you educate them. Once you educate them, you encourage workshops, you participate on those workshops in their community. Give them different nutrition and make sure that everybody has some type of hands-on training. Let them recruit people in their own neighborhoods to help. Because like I said, when they know that they're participating and they're part and parcel of the solving the problem, they're more eager to be there. Mentorship and training programs where we can establish programs that pair experienced BIPOC pet ownership with newcomers to share knowledge and guidance. Offer training in animal care, grooming, and training for community members interested in pursuing careers in the pet industry. It's just like when you have a baby. Nobody comes up knowing, oh, this is the way I change a diaper. This is the way I'm going to breastfeed this baby. This is the way I'm going to bathe this baby. There's always somebody teaching you, showing you, giving you the resources you need in order to ensure that your baby is okay. It's not different when you're doing it to your pet. So let's have that guidance so that people can be successful. And once again, culturally sensitive training. I can't say this enough. Provide culturally sensitive training, not to the veterinary profession, animal welfare staff, and enforcement to ensure respectful and effective interactions, and emphasize the importance of understanding diverse cultural practices related to pets. And this is what I was talking about. When you have communities or cultures like mine, where we don't necessarily treat animals well, we don't know how. We don't really know that we can actually have this unique connection. So because we don't know, we just do what we know. And when we do what we know, sometimes it is criminal. And when we are being criminalized, we don't know why we're being criminalized, because based on our upbringing, we are taught that's an animal. It should be kicked. It should be left outside. It should not be, it should not, come into the house. It should not be bathed. It's not supposed to be treated like a child. So it is so important to educate those professionals, those vets, the animal welfare, as well as law enforcement, and let them understand that we need more education. We are not doing this from just, we're actually doing it. I'm going to say the word ignorance, because we just don't know. And then feedback and community engagement. Actively seek feedback from BIPOC community members to improve services and initiatives. You have to get feedback from them. What works for them? What does not work for them? When I work with children with disabilities and their families, when I was working with children with disabilities and their families, we do have a plan of action as an agency or an organization. But guess what? Every family is different. So when I go into their family, whilst I have my guidelines to follow, I have to ensure I'm asking them, what do you need as a family? Give me feedback. What works for you as a community? What works for you as a family? What works for you as an individual? And based on that, then I tailor the interventions that are needed for you. So host community forums and advisory groups and involve the residents in decision-making processes. Yes, we are experts. We are the experts. We are the veterinarians. We are the law enforcement. I'm the professor. And, we have all these accolades behind us. But we need to leave those behind. The decision-making should be made by the members of that community. So based on that, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. And And, and one of them was, how would you implement one of the listed practical applications at your animal shelter? And what else can you do to support BIPOC pet ownerships? Before I go into Q&A, I'm just going to go ahead and add that this has actually been one of the best experiences I've had when it comes to research. I learned a lot. I'm open to learning even more and engaging with more people. I do not look at animals or pets the same. They look totally different to me because of this particular experience. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kisavi-Atatah. It's our honor to have you here today and to learn from you. And we will now open it up to questions. Our first question says, I'm curious if there was an opportunity based on the local demographics to include Indigenous community members, such as Native American, Native Alaskan, Native Hawaiian. And if so, what were the reasons for not choosing that community demographic for the study? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Actually, I was trying to include them, but unfortunately, it was a purposeful sampling. At that time, we had COVID-19, and it was very difficult for me to actually reach participants for this particular study. So, and also another reason why I did not include them is because based on the micro grant that I received, I only had 3 months to conduct this study. So yes, I only had 3 months. So I had a deadline that I had to meet. So that is the reason why. But of course, that is one of the recommendations that I put there, to include more people so I'm able to generalize my findings.
Thank you. And next question. From your literature search, do you think that your findings from the ethnic groups you sampled can be extrapolated to Indigenous populations?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then the next question is, what are the reasons for choosing case study instead of such as ethnographic or phenomenal, I can never say this word, phenomenological or other kinds of qualitative approaches to conduct this research?
Okay, case study. I chose case study because this was just a group of the group of individuals that I just wanted to interview. When it comes to a phenomenological approach, is what are their experiences? I would have done that on a broader scale because actually that is an approach I used for my research study. So the case study, I just wanted to focus on the people who have had the same experiences in this short scale.
Next question is, do you think that each of these ethnicities, due to differences in cultural background, diverge in the types of attachment they have with their pets? Are there ways to study these differences?
And that's something I want to actually hone into, because as I was, talking to them about the experiences, like I talked about the African participants with the Asian participants, I could see differences in how they approached their pets, but it's really not a significant difference. But based on their experiences or their cultural backgrounds, I could see that they had developed different worldviews. But at the end of the day, their attachment was very, very similar in each of these groups.
Next question is, do you have any cultural sensitivity trainings to recommend? We found one via the Vancouver Humane Society, but wonder if there are others that would benefit animal welfare agencies.
For animal welfare, I really don't know because I am really new to this field, but from a public health space, yes, there are so many different conferences that you can go to that address issues of cultural sensitivities.
Our next question is from Mueni Red. Good to see you here, Mueni. And she asked, can you please tell us more about what HBCUs like Prairie View are interested in exploring more?
Actually, when I started doing this study, I approached my dean and I said, "Oh, guess what? I'm doing this." And she was like, "What? What is that?" And she was really, really, really excited. And she said, "Wow, the School of Public Health would really benefit her in doing so much more research on animal welfare and public health." One of the things that we are planning to do is I've been brainstorming as the new director of public health is what more can we do? And I did speak on that. What additionally can we expose our students to? And so that relationship with animal welfare is extremely, extremely important. So given the opportunity, I would like to delve even more into having this type of not only just discussions, but also doing the research.
Thank you. And she also asked, how can organizations partner with PV in a meaningful way?
It would be great to have organizations that are already established because, like I stated, actually, I'm the only one in the entire department who has ever done anything like this. So it would be really good to not only partner with organizations that already know what they're doing and, bringing us along on from a public health space and our students, most especially our students. So that because I always tell my students, hey, look, I'm just going to teach you, but it's your job to go up there and spread the love. Get the information that you get from the classroom and spread it. So if we could partner with organizations who are already, in the animal welfare, that will greatly benefit us and, getting more grants and writing more papers and having more exposure and bringing them into our different communities. I think that would benefit all of us.
Thank you. Our next question is actually a comment, and that is a comment that the CARE website, careawo.org, does have racial equity, diversity, and inclusion training on their website. So that is an option for training.
Excellent.
Next question is regarding mentorship and training programs that pair experienced BIPOC pet owners with newcomers. Really exciting way of increasing knowledge about pets and the way we care for them. Do you have examples of these types of programs in healthcare that have been successful and that we can learn from?
No, I don't have any examples. I don't mind looking into it.
Thank you.
I wouldn't mind looking into it, yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure there's some examples out there. Yes. If anybody knows of any successful programs, we'd love to hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from Denise, who asks, how can I approach you if I/my faculty are interested in conducting research with you? Thank you.
I would love to share my email with you, my email address.
Great, thank you. This next, I would like our shelter to be more involved in providing better access to low-cost veterinary care, but we have some legal barriers to be able to do that, unfortunately. I do appreciate that you included mentorship in your recommendations because I think that's something that I can do as a shelter veterinarian because there are a lot of high school students in the urban system here who want to be veterinarians, and we can provide opportunities for them to shadow. Okay. I think that sounds like that's an excellent thought and recommendation and opportunity to provide training for high school students as well as mentorship. Thank you, Dr. Kisavi-Atatah, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. Dr. Kisavi-Atatah will be available on Maddie's Pet Forum to continue this discussion. Feel free to post more questions there. The link is in the chat area. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.